Fauzan Nordin, the Director of IIIT East and Southeast Asia, Prof. Dr. Muhammad Aslam Muhammad Hanif, Director, the Academic Development Division of the IIIT East and Southeast Asia. And then we have Dr. Ilham, from the United States. And our guest to this event, I am Prof. Dr. Roslina Othman from the International Islamic University as the moderator. And I welcome you to this program, IIIT Online Intellectual Discourse Series number 31. So to begin, let's recite Surah Al-Fatihah for Allah's blessings and grace. Amin, amin, ya Rabbil Alameen. Okay, and Alhamdulillah, it is an honor that tonight we have a distinguished scholar, Prof. Dr. Rosnani Hashim, who will speak on an impactful work of hers. And Prof. Rosnani has a very long CV, mashallah. We'll read her biography now. Prof. Rosnani Hashim is currently an adjunct professor of educational foundations at the Faculty of Education, International Islamic University, Malaysia, where she headed as its former dean. She obtained her PhD in Social Foundations of Education from Florida, Master of Science in Curriculum and Instruction, Math Education from Wisconsin-Madison, and the Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Northern Illinois. The area of specializations, Islamic education, history, philosophy, and curriculum, curriculum and instruction, mathematics education, and the pedagogy of philosophical inquiry. She has extensive practical experience as teacher and also lecturer, a researcher, an academic administrator, a school board director, a teaching practicum and thesis supervisor, and a mathematics and Islamic education curriculum designer and reviewer for the Ministry of Education. Prof. Rosnani has established the Center for Philosophical Inquiry in Education in 2006, later renamed it to the Center of Teaching Thinking in 2014. She has received the Best Teacher and Researcher Awards from the university and most recently the Academic Icon Award 2019. She has been awarded the Japanese Foundation Fellowship, the Fulbright Fellowship, and the Maulana Rumi Exchange Program. She has taught in Nagoya University, Japan, Montgomery Community College, Pennsylvania, USA, and Sakarya University in Turkey. Her major researches were on educational dualism and integrated curriculum, Islamization and integration of knowledge, himah pedagogy of philosophical inquiry, school-based assessment, women and education, and Iqra fast-track Quranic recitation method known as Rosnani's method. She has been awarded national awards for 2 of her research works. She was the editor for Journal Pendidikan Islam ABIM and the editor-in-chief for the IIUM Journal of Educational Studies. Her works include Toward an Islamic Curriculum, Principles and Issues, IIUM Press 2019, and also the Educational Dualism in Malaysia, Oxford 1996, Reclaiming the Conversation, Islamic Intellectual Tradition in the Malay Archipelago, an edited work with S. Naji, History, Theory and Practice of Philosophy for Children, International Perspective, and also with our Tan Sri Rector, Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Pentafsiran Baru Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan dan pelaksanaannya pasca 2020 IUM 2019. 2 of these works have received awards. As for this program, guests are welcome to post questions in the chat, and inshallah we will read them out during the question and answer session. So without further ado, let's hear from Prof. Dr. Rosnani Hashim on the education for human development in Malaysia, identification of necessary values and competencies. Tafadhal mashkura, Prof. Dr. Rosnani.
Thank you, Prof. Roslina, for the generous, very long introduction. Okay, that just shows that I'm not known. Okay, we are known, you don't have to say so much, right? But anyway, as you mentioned, this topic is about education for human development. And actually, this is the results of a research project. There was a research collaboration between the advancing education in Muslim societies, wing of IIIT in USA, with IIIT's East and Southeast Asia, and also IIUM in the form of undertaken by the Center for Islamic Economics from the Kuliah of Economics and Management Sciences, and the Center for Teaching Thinking from the Kuliah of Education. Okay, actually, this is the second wave of this AEMS project, of which Dr. Ilham is the director, and she's present here tonight, alhamdulillah. Okay, and we really welcome her. And this project I'm presenting actually has team members comprising of Prof. Aslam, Prof. Fauzan, Emeritus Prof. Dr. Jamal Usman, and also Dr. Abdul Majid from Kuliah of Education. We have our 3 research assistants who are to whom we are indebted. There is Brother Izzuddin, from all of them from the Kuliah of Education, Brother Izzuddin, Brother Tuan Muhammad, and Sister Najihah. I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank Associate Professor Dr. Rahim Mahambung from UNISA. She's here with us tonight for helping us out in getting the students from UNISA to respond to our questionnaires. And we have, I don't think we have our colleagues from IIUM that help us in getting the response from IIUM itself. Okay. And I'm not sure whether we invited the school principals. I think I've forgotten about that, but that's well. Anyway, so my appreciation to all these people. As I said, this is a second wave of the first of AEMS project, which is worldwide. And in the first wave, we were able to gather data from one state in Malaysia, that is Selangor. But in the second stage, which we intended to gather data from the whole country, we only managed to draw data from West Malaysia or Peninsular Malaysia. We were overtaken by the pandemic, and that did not allow us to go to East Malaysia to collect the data. So we managed to draw data from 4 zones in the country. But anyway, I will deal with that deeper later on. This study is more about producing the balanced, integrated individual through a holistic education. When we say balanced education, we mean there are 3 ways you can say it. Okay, one is the integration of the balance between the body, or jasad, the roh, soul, and the akal. Akal can be loop, also mind. Okay, soul can be nafs and qalb as well. That's one way of saying it. Or we can say the balance between the affective domain, the cognitive domain, and the physical domain. This is much used by psychologists. Okay, or it's also the balance between the head, the heart, and the hand. Okay, so this is what we meant when we say balanced, integrated, holistic education. Now, there is, of course, this feeling of imbalance in the world today. As you can see, there is this cause called by UNESCO, United Nations, for the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, because that shows that we have been imbalanced, and there is a need to balance up to make sure that we can sustain the earth for the future generation. Okay, but in the context of Malaysia, actually we have been supporting this education for human development in contrast to education for manpower development. That was what we were aiming at immediately after independence, education for manpower development, or education for human resource development. But then to reform in the 80s, we were going for education for the human development or the integrated personality. Okay, And we had that reform in the 80s until, of course, the fatal year of 1999. But anyway, after that, we had introduced the integrated curriculum. Okay, but later on, as you can see, as we go into the 21st century, we were all overtaken by technology. So we have ICT that draws about change in the school and also in the university.
Prof. Rosnani, are you sharing the screen?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Later, I'll put it on, okay? I guess we were very engrossed in trying to come up with the smart school, the technological advancement, information technology. We were trying to come up with higher order thinking skills, you know. And in the university, we are talking about K-economy, so much so that we marginalize the human sciences, the social sciences, and therefore that's why the rector of IIUM came out with this FPK saying that let's balance it up. You know, we need to humanize education. Okay, so this is something that's gone on in Malaysia. Okay, however, as this happened, we realized that education is beginning to lose its souls. And even in America, you have the professor from Harvard, Professor Lewis, who mentioned that even Harvard, the best of the university in America, has lost its souls. So education, are we really educating, or we are just schooling people? You know, we school people, but they're not educated. So that's the difference. We have to remember there's a difference between schooling and education. Okay, so with these characters and values are again marginalized, and there is of course no wisdom in education anymore. Even the Yale psychologist Sternberg was saying that we have focused so much on cognitive intelligence, you know, and then he talked about practical intelligence, but we have lost wisdom. Whereas wisdom is the main goal of education, the hikmah. Okay, so then the pandemic came, alhamdulillah, to warn us, and then we realized that it's not just about cognitive. The human touch is very important. Had there been no human touch, many people would have lost their life. But the pandemic helped many people to help other people. Okay, so now I will share my screen. Okay. So now I'll talk about the So the goal of this study, to examine we want to examine the degree to which competencies and values that are necessary for balanced, integrated, holistic human development, do they exist in Malaysia educational institution, and the implications of their relationship in improving educational quality. So this is what I try to capture in the whole study that we've been doing for almost 2 years now. I mean, we were delayed, we were almost done, and then suddenly realized that we have lost some data from UNISA. So we had to prolong our study to make sure that the data is included. Okay. So the three research questions are: what are the attitudes or views of school and university students, teachers, and university lecturers towards values in the three classes of consciousness? So now I will discuss about these three state of consciousness. Okay, open-mindedness, responsibility, and collaborative collective. Are there significant differences in attitudes of the students and instructors, and also towards the three classes of values based on these three states or classes of consciousness? And does there exist any correlation or relationship between construct or variables under these three classes of values? Okay, so what are these three classes? Okay, and how do they come about? These three classes of consciousness or stages of consciousness, which is open-mindedness, responsibility, and collaborative collective. I must tell you that most of the literature review and the framework comes from AEMS. Okay, so they will know more than we do, but I'm just deliberating based on what they have published. Okay, So this is the three state of consciousness. And it comes about with the belief that, okay, you will have, actually, for the 21st century, we need more than just people who care about themselves. That is egocentric, who focus on themselves. We need to move out of that. That means we need to care about our community. So that's why we move from egocentric to ethnocentric. And then if you look at the pandemic today, okay, it's not enough to just focus on the community, because the pandemic means if one country has vaccinated all its population, but there are so many other countries that don't have the capacity to vaccinate its population, then it's no use, because COVID-19 doesn't recognize borders of countries. Okay, so you have to have the whole world vaccinated before the whole world can lead their new normal life again. Okay, so in other words, there is the need for the collective. The world has to act together. Okay, you have to care for each other. And then finally, we added the stage of Tawheed, because when you reach this stage where you consider not just yourself, not just the community, but the whole world, then you are transcendent. You are transcendental. Actually, you're like the Prophet, because Prophet Prophet Muhammad especially doesn't look at race or particular ethnic groups or culture. Islam is for everyone. So the Tawheed shows the unity of God. So that's why we come to this. So actually, it's a movement from the what do you call this? The self-focus to the universal focus. Okay, so to survive in that world we're talking about, we need human beings to have three kinds of competences. You can call this, or states of. There are three states here. There are state of consciousness, or we can call these competences. We need people who are open-minded. Okay, we need people who are responsible, and we need people who can work collaboratively. Okay, so based on the literature, several values have been identified with each of these states. Okay, so you have 5 values here for open-mindedness. You have to just absorb it for now. Don't ask me, okay? Because if you ask me, then we don't have time. Okay, I have only 1 hour. Maybe in the question, maybe in Q&A, you can answer. Okay? There are empathy, meaning making, problem solving, life satisfaction, and hope comes under open-mindedness. And then responsibility. To be a responsible person, you have to be able to self-regulate, emotion regulate, self-efficacy, and sense of gratitude. And then for collective, you have this collectivist orientation, community orientation, sense of belonging, forgiveness, and there's something missing here, that is religiosity. Religiosity comes here, because I think religious people, they can absorb the whole world as one. Okay, so they are less selfish. Okay, supposedly. Okay, so you have these three groups. Okay, so so this is the detail. I don't have to go through this detail, because it just try to explain between the egocentric, the ethnocentric, what I have explained just now. Okay. So if you are egocentric, to focus on survival of the family or the inner, what's that? Family or the inner group, right? Okay. And ethnocentric, that means the state of being here is focused on national identity and groups. Okay. So this is where we are stuck with nationalism. Okay. And this is not enough, as the world got smaller and more connected because of globalization, technology, and social media. Okay. Worldly describe a state of consciousness that is inclusive, concerned with the welfare of others. Okay. And then moving away from egocentrism, ethnocentrism to worldly is what Tawheed. Okay, Tawheed as a unity. Okay, as a working definition and state of being is all about. So I think we just go to that. Okay, so I presume everyone knows what sympathy, what is meaning making, what is social problem solving, what is life satisfaction. But in this study, empathy is the ability to understand others' emotion, the willingness to care, feel, and take the perspective of others. and be responsive to their needs. Meaning making means there's a sense of coherence or understanding of existence, the purpose of one's life, the pursuit of attaining the worthiness goal, and accompanying sense of fulfillment. I think most of us know that if you have a religion, especially Islam, you will have some purpose of life, because Allah asks you in the Quran, Fa'aina tas'abun. Very simple, very simple. Fa'aina tas'abun. Where are you going? So that's one. That is where the meaning making comes in. Okay, and then social problem solving is the ability to analyze, understand, prepare to respond to every problem solving problems, decision, and conflict. Life satisfaction is defined as evaluation of one's own life. How far are you from your ideal life? Okay, I think you don't have to read all of this. Self-regulation, that means generated thoughts, feelings, and action that are planned and adapted to the attainment of personal goals. Okay, emotional regulation means it's a process to which you can sort of moderate your emotions consciously and non-consciously to respond to the environmental demand. Okay, self-efficacy, I think, is very famous for psychology. If you have self-efficacy, means you know you can do it. You can do it. Okay, so you have teacher self-efficacy and student self-efficacy. Gratitude, collectivistic versus individualistic. Sense of belonging is a feeling of identification with certain groups. And religiosity, here religiosity is defined as the degree of influence one's faith has on one's values, behaviors in everyday life. So that's how religiosity means in this study, okay? So of course, in the literature, there are many relationships found based on literature about all of these values. Sometimes I call them values, sometimes I call them construct, sometimes I call them scales. So please excuse me, okay? Because they are referring to the same thing. Because making meaning can be a construct. They're talking about operationalizing that operational definition, okay? It can mean value if it's a value. Okay, it can also mean a scale if you're talking about like a scale measuring something, okay, in the instrument. So we have all of these saying that, for example, meaning making is related to religion and life satisfaction. It is also a positive effect and also self-efficacy. Okay, gratitude is related to hope, forgiveness, and positive effect on a person. Okay, empathy. If you have empathy, you have low level hostility and aggression, and so on. So these are the relationship that has been found in the literature. Okay. So the research methodology is quantitative. Okay, survey, and the sample were from 3, 4, 5 students and university students, teachers and lecturers from the same schools or universities, and they represent 4 zones: Kedah Northern, Negeri Sembilan Central, and then we have Terengganu in Eastern, and we have Johor in the South. So that's what we have. And the instrument was a 4-point Likert scale of. There are many attributes, for example, agreement, likelihood, frequency, importance, truth, or influence. So these are the attributes of the Likert scales. Okay. Each category of sample has its own instrument because there are 4 categories. You have students, school students, university students, teachers, and lecturers. The instrument for teachers and lecturers are the same, but for the students, university student, and school student, they are different. Okay. So these instruments have some construct that are similar and some are not, okay? And we analyze the data using descriptive, statistic, t-test, ANOVA, and structure and equation modeling, okay? So, for example, here, this shows you what kind of similarities and differences. The X means, for example, for empathy, it is tested for all 3 groups. 4 groups, university student, school teacher, faculty member, university student, and school student. What is not common is self-efficacy, because they have 1 for teachers and lecturers, 1 for students, so not the same. Problem solving is not tested for the teachers and lecturers, neither are they tested for sense of belonging. But for hope, the school student not tested on that. So you can see there are some slight differences. Okay. So we have all these attributes or all these construct values or scale that I mentioned just now, and these are the attributes on the Likert scale. Okay. For example, when we say frequency, it can be there are only 4 points. Okay. So agree, strongly disagree, agree, strongly agree. So there's only 4 points. Okay. So you can see that if 1 to 4, the midpoint is 2.5. I would say. I mean between 2 and 3. Okay. So these were the schools, and altogether we have altogether we have about 911 students, 85 teachers, 20 lecturers, and 164 university students. Okay, so total 1180. So this is the composition. As you can see, 77% student, 14% university student, 2% lecturers, and 7% school teachers. Okay, and I think gender-wise, of course, they are more female than male. Okay, in proportion to what's in the reality. Okay, ethnicity, there are more Malays, also in proportion to the reality. Okay, now you can see there are about. Let me move this thing up. I can see that. Okay, so you have 77.2%. Oh, okay. 72.6% Malays, 18.8% Chinese, 6.3% Indians, and the rest. So it does represent the population. Okay. And then okay, by religion also you can see we have more Muslims. Okay, and then the next highest is Buddhists, and then Hindus, and then Christians. Okay, right, I find it. So again, I have to reduce the size of my. Okay, of course, in terms of relationship for SEM, we have to hypothesize. So what was hypothesized for the general model, that means all the people is that we will find that gratitude and forgiveness are the outcome variable, and they are predicted by these other 4 variables. Okay, this is again from literature. Okay, and experience, probably you can say. Gratitude and forgiveness is predicted or affected or influenced by empathy, meaning making, hope, and collectivistic orientation. Okay, and then for the instructor's model, we were looking at the outcome to be self-efficacy and life satisfaction, because they are teachers, right? So it's more prominent, the necessity for self-efficacy in the teaching profession, and life satisfaction as they are already adults. Okay, and then for the student model, we expected the main thing is empathy and forgiveness. Okay, let's look at the reliability. Let's not discuss this because I think they are reliable. Only thing that there's some weak point here. For example, gratitude for teacher is a bit low. Similarly, the gratitude for lecturers is low because it's 0.2, less than 0.5 even. Okay, but the rest are more than 0.6 and 0.7. Okay, so it is strong. Oops, what is this? And then, oops. So for the overall mean that we obtained were this row here. You can see that the highest mean is on religiosity. I think this will be common in Malaysia, because although we come from different races or religion, but I think the religion we have here are the Eastern religion, and the tendency is that you notice the Easterners, okay, they are religious. Okay, so most of them will put religiosity or spirituality as number 1. So you can see that there. But then and then you can have the one that I star is not common to all, okay? The next one that is common to all is gratitude. Gratitude is number 4. There's number 2 for all, gratitude, okay? And then the next common one is emotion regulation. Oh, sorry, number 3 is here. Empathy. Empathy is high. So you have religiosity, then gratitude, and empathy is very high on the common one, okay? And then you have sense of belonging is not high. Sense of belonging is number 10. That means our respondent don't have sense of belonging to their school nor to the university probably, okay? Because we're asking them belonging for the school or university, okay? And then problem solving is also low here, okay? So what is high is just religiosity, gratitude, empathy, okay? But you notice that most of the means are above 3. So above 3 means as we are on a 4-point Likert scale. That means there are moderate agreement. They are in agreement. So 3 is an agreement or important. Okay, so they're good. Okay, they're good except I think. Oh, you can't see. Can you see forgiveness? Forgiveness is low, right?
Yes.
Usually forgiveness is below 2.5. It's below the midpoint.
Yeah.
That means we are not forgiving the Asians. Say that they're not forgiving because it's very low. So I mean, we always say, people say that I can forgive you, but I cannot forget. Right? I can forgive, but I cannot forget. But here, I think they don't even can forgive. Okay, they cannot forgive even. Okay? So how can they not forget? Okay, so I think I'm surprised because forgiveness is very low. Okay, the lowest in fact. Okay. Oops. Now, if you look at, where is it now? This is. Oh. Yeah. So just now was general all, okay, but if you look at the individual student, instructor, and university students, okay, we combine the teachers and lecturers here. You realize that all of them have number 1 for religiosity, okay, the teachers as well as the students. And then the next highest one is, let's say here, number 3 here is for gratitude. For except you see student is number 6, but for student and teachers is number 3. And here is also quite high. Empathy is also quite high for all of them. Okay, that means our students have empathy. And then we can go for here, meaning making, also quite high. Okay. So these are some of the things that we can see that they possess. Okay. So, oops. So here, if you want to see according to the competencies, I've grouped them according to competencies. You can see that for open-mindedness, it is 3 point and above. That means it's good. Okay. For collectivistic orientation, it's also close to 3 and above. You can say, except for the students a bit low. Okay. And for the what's the third one? Open-mindedness, collectivistic, and responsibility, right? Responsibility, you can see that I can't see my data because it's hidden, it's covered.
2.95 student.
What does it mean?
2.95 for a student. Instructor 3.07.
Okay, yeah. 2.95. Yeah. It's a bit low compared to the rest, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the rest, responsibility is low. And you notice that for all, when you compare across the 3 groups, the student always has the lowest, right? Does that mean anything to you? The student has the lowest means compared to the university student and to the teachers, but not very far, but still the lowest. Okay, so in other words, it's sort of maturity makes a difference. Okay, so here you can see if you group them according to the university and so on, you can see that the highest is what is this? Religiosity here. This is the highest group, and then the next one is the What is that?
Gratitude, is it gratitude?
Gratitude. Yeah, gratitude is second. And then you can see that these are the common one. The not common one I put here. Okay, the common one. So the common one, you have religiosity or spirituality, and then you have gratitude. And then it's the same between what is that? Empathy and emotion regulation and meaning making. But the lowest you can see here is forgiveness. You can see it's low. Okay, it's low compared to you see here. Okay. Anyway, oops. One, I don't have to show this. Okay. Now for the relationship between the values. Okay. Just now we said that the hypothesis is gratitude and forgiveness, right? If you remember this gratitude and forgiveness. The outcome says for the hypothetical model, it is gratitude and forgiveness. And these are the predictor. Okay. But if you look at this, I cannot read this because this is blocking me.
Is it the hypothetical model or is it?
Yeah, this one is, now we have the actual structural model.
Okay.
That is obtained from the data. From the hypothetical model, we said that we expected gratitude and forgiveness to be the outcome. And the predictor would be empathy, meaning making, okay, collectivistic orientation, and what is that? And
hope.
What is that?
Hope.
It's hope. Hope and hope, right?
Yes.
But in actual fact, if you look, actually, forgiveness is not related strongly to any of the variables. Just now we said forgiveness is very low, right? It's not correlated. It's very. In fact, it's forgiveness and CIO, collectivistic orientation, okay, are not related to most of the other variables. Okay. I'll show you the next one. Okay. So you can see that what is predictable is gratitude, and gratitude can be predicted by empathy, meaning making, and also collectivistic orientation. So this is what the data tells us. In other words, and forgiveness is not an outcome, and hope is not related at all to gratitude. Okay. So in other words, this means that if we want students to have gratitudes, more gratitudes, then we have to work on the ability to make meaning in their life. To have meaning in their life, the ability for them to be able to empathize more with others, and then the ability for them to work in community services. So in other words, if we are able to produce students who are working on this character, then we can get people who are having high gratitudes. Okay, so this is the meaning of this relationship in this SEM, structural equation modeling. Okay, so that's one. Okay, now for the second one is student structural model. Okay, it was predicted that we will have empathy and forgiveness. Again, forgiveness. Okay, and the predictors are sense of belonging, problem solving, self-regulation, emotion regulation, and self-efficacy. But after we analyze using SEM, we realize that again forgiveness is not the outcome. And what can predict empathy of the students are sense of belonging, problem solving, ER, emotion regulation, and self-efficacy. So in other words, actually there is the model is good because there are many almost similar predictors, right? Only that it fails to show forgiveness as an outcome, but the rest you can have them there. Sense of belonging is there, problem solving is there, self-regulation is not there, emotion regulation is there, and self-efficacy. I think so. That means this model is good. It's almost close to the hypothesized model. Oops. Oh. So here again, how do you interpret this? If you want empathy to be your students or teachers' character, I mean, these are students, right? School students' characteristic. You have to work on the other predictors. That means they must have a high sense of belonging to the school or to the university. At the moment, as you can see, sense of belonging is not very high. Okay, it is 3 above, I think, but it's not very high. So, problem solving or social problem solving, emotion, they are able to regulate their emotion, not to be very emotional, and have sense of self-efficacy. So if they have this, then they can develop their empathy. So that's what the finding says, okay? This is the correlation matrix that I wanted to show you, is that forgiveness here, this row is forgiveness, okay? When you compare to the other values or construct, okay, you will see that it's only correlated with CIO, collectivistic orientation, and problem solving. And that too is very low, 0.2 and 0.1, okay? But if you look at, for example, CIO is correlated here with many things, but it's still very low. It's only 0.2. But if you look on this side, this end, they're all correlated and quite high. 0.5, yeah, 0.4, 0.6. What are these? For example, here, very much this row, there is emotion regulation. Look here, this one is very high in this line. There is empathy. And this one also is quite high on self-regulation. Here you have 2 very high, religiosity, the sense of belonging. This is very high also. Sense of belonging affects on this. Okay, so that's what we mean when we say that forgiveness doesn't seem to be related, highly related, not significantly related. No, so that's what this one tells us. Oops, and then this is for the university or instructor. University student. For the university student, they have the same model as the school student. Again, the forgiveness is not an outcome, only empathy, and they have almost the same predictor. Okay. So the university student and school student is the same thing. Okay. And this is the last one. This is the instructors, the lecturers, and the teachers. Okay, for the lecturers and the teachers, what was hypothesized in the model as outcome was self-efficacy and life satisfaction. I mean, teachers, we expected to have a need for self-efficacy, a feeling for it, and also life satisfaction. And the predictors are meaning-making, gratitude, self-regulation, and emotion regulation. So if you look at this, it's true, it's perfect. In other words, it's detected that self-efficacy and life satisfaction is the outcome based on this data. And then you can look at these predictors. The predictors are meaning-making, gratitude, emotion regulation, and self-regulation. So, but self-efficacy, where is it? For life satisfaction here, the predictors are SR, ER, and gratitude. Okay. I should have colored it differently. I didn't color it differently. And for the self-efficacy, it is SR, ER, gratitude, plus, it's almost the same, plus meaning-making. That is for self-efficacy. That means if they have the able to meaning of their life, they will have better self-efficacy. So what you can say about teachers is that if you want teachers who have high self-efficacy, when they have high self-efficacy, that means that they believe that they can change the student. Okay, that means they can change the student. That means you have to make sure that they have emotion regulation, they have sense of gratitude, they have meaning making, and they have self-regulation. Okay, and for life satisfaction, the same thing. Okay. So, in other words, if we want our teachers to be professionally efficient, they can change students, they are satisfied with their life, we have to work on these other factors. So, this is for instructor, okay? And then, okay. So, what can we conclude? Okay, so almost finishing. The findings indicate that most of the constructs were found to be positive, being mostly very important, or agreeable, often likely to that means 3 point above, with religiosity being the highest mean across all categories. The other construct, which means greater than 3, were religiosity, empathy, gratitude, and emotion. I didn't have to mention religiosity because I mentioned here, you know, right? But of course, forgiveness is the lowest. Even you look at self-efficacy, collective orientation, self-regulation, there are means between 2.8 something and 2.96. It's close to 3. It's on the higher side, more than 2.5, more than half. Okay. And this finding contrasted with the first wave conducted in Selangor, where all the construct given, of course, they are not the same construct. Okay, their only similarity was self-efficacy, moral reasoning. They don't have a problem solving. Their moral reasoning, then religiosity. Okay, then they were all at least 3.0, except forgiveness and cognitive empathy for the previous wave. Okay, and then most constructs were significantly related to each other, except for forgiveness and collectivistic orientation. In contrast, the first wave of forgiveness was correlated and predicted by empathy, moral reasoning, self-efficacy, religiosity, and community-mindedness. And when you look at the test, key test and ANOVA, for school students, there's not much differences for gender except for these 3 constructs. Also the same thing here, 3 constructs. Yeah, this is gender. Okay, gender this way. Okay, gender this way. Between the 4 groups, okay, the general says the significance a difference for all except these 2. The general, but for the specific, there's no significant difference, not much different, except for very little collectivistic orientation. For ethnicity, there's this, how they look at the construct. There are significant difference between the ethnic groups for this kind of construct. For school students, there's so much more, okay, but for university students, only 2. For instructors, in fact, only 1. But for general, for everything, I think. Excuse me. Oops. Okay. And then for religiosity, university student, no significant difference except in these 4. No significant difference except for these 2. So significant for general, there's significant difference in all except MN. Okay, meaning making. For school type, for school student, was found that there are significant difference in CIO, PS, and religiosity. If you look further down, you realize that there's a differences between the national school SMK and the SMJK, the Chinese schools. There is a difference, and the Mubalik school, the Christian convents, you know. So there's some difference there, but no instructors, no significant difference except life satisfaction, empathy. Okay, I think you have to give meaning to this. Okay, oops. So finally, as SEM, I already discussed with you. Okay, so this means that sense of belonging, emotional regulation, and problem solving are important for empathy development in students. Okay, empathy development in students, meaning making, emotional regulation, and gratitude are important for instructor self-efficacy and life satisfaction. And meaning making and empathy are important for the development of gratitude in general. So I think, so how can we improve? Because mentioned about educational quality, right? So, and we are concerned about educational quality in the sense of the humanizing education. We are not just thinking about jobs. Okay, we want them to become the balanced human, where they are also trained for jobs, but they mustn't forget the more important part of their life is the humanness, humanity. Okay, so this gives you some ideas, because I don't think there are many research on this. Okay, give us some ideas on where are we at in terms of these three stages of consciousness, or the three competencies. We talk about responsibility, we talk about open-mindedness, and collectivistic orientation. And we realize that although we would like to have forgiveness as a very strong outcome, like in the first study, where it was predicted by many of the other constructs, but in this case, to my amazement, I'm still not able to explain. Forgiveness doesn't seem to have any hole with regards to the other values. Okay, and definitely in the context of Malaysia, when we talk about the national philosophy of education, which is based on a firm belief in God, if that is in the philosophy, definitely there is evidence that this is clearly, manifested by the layers of society, whether they are school students, university students, and even the instructors and lecturers. Okay, so that is not a problem. So, but I think forgiveness is very important in our context, because we are different. We are multi-ethnic, multi-faith, and if we don't have the concept of forgiveness, we are going to have conflicts very easily. So that's why we have to nurture forgiveness, because I just remember watching this Afghanistan, the Taliban, where they were put in prison for such a long time until the downfall, the American left, and then they were released from the prison. And when they were interviewing them, they would say that they want revenge. They cannot forget what the American has done to them. They have to sort of revenge. But if you look at the other side, how the Prophet treated the Meccans when he entered Makkah, he was willing to forgive them, right? So we have not reached that stage, I would say. We have to work on that. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Roslina. I'm sorry for taking extra time.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Prof. Rosnani. Indeed, it's a very enlightening presentation and also research work. As I've mentioned earlier, it's an impactful research work here, and thank you for bringing those data to us. Really, it's indeed interesting. So let's see. It's now a question and answer. So I don't see many questions there, except the first one coming from Scott, who quoted from Mark Twain. I have never let my schooling get in the way of my education. I guess that was his response to your opening, Prof. Rosnani. So maybe we can start with that one first before we move to questions from the audience. Yeah. Or maybe Scott want to add something to elaborate on.
Yeah, let him elaborate on that for the audience.
Scott?
Thank you. Yeah, no,
Mark
it's
Twain,
it's one of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain. He always said, "Don't let I never let my schooling get in the way of my education." And I think he was more so talking about the politics that sometimes get involved in schooling, and how there's a rigidity in, particularly we're talking turn of the century American education, which there's a very rigid system of what you must do and getting proper test scores and checking all the boxes to then move on to proper education. And that can get in the way of proper learning, which it differs from student to student, and it takes certain focusing points, and there's a whole lot of philosophy that goes into that. The question I suppose I had, because what I was curious about, I was sort of in the middle of writing it, and I might as well just ask, with this underlying education of philosophy in Malaysia, when was this really established, if it was established? I'm not sure if it has been. I mean, I know there are the national plans, but I don't know if I know this will obviously vary from primary to secondary and then universities as to what the philosophical underpinnings towards the educational systems that we have. When was that all set up? Then has there been significant changes to these conventions? And then I was wondering, in looking at your various indicators, what analysis can, I guess, be provided to these conventions that maybe need to be changed or updated, or are there new conventions that need to be adopted in order to improve the indicators that you're investigating? So I'll kind of leave you with that if you have any thoughts.
Okay. I think I'd like to respond to that. Yeah, I use, you don't be surprised. We in Malaysia, when I was in secondary school, Mark Twain is one of the book that we read. Scott, okay. Or English literature, okay?
Right.
And I think he was saying that, I think, because he was a very adventurous person, right? The outdoors is more interesting than in the four walls, okay? So anyway, yeah, I agree with you when you say that don't get schooling, get integrated education. And that's what's going on now. Okay, that's what's going on. Responding to your question about the case of Malaysia, when we had our reform beginning in the somewhere around 1988, and that was when we had the formulation of the National Philosophy of Education, 1988, when Anwar Ibrahim was the Minister of Education.
Right.
Okay, and then after that, it was followed by the integrated curriculum for secondary school. What was important in this change is that you don't want teachers just to convey information. You want teachers to educate the values regardless of just the subject they are teaching, okay, or university your specialization, okay. So what happened is that before this, you teach a subject and that's it. You don't relate it to any values. So now the ministry is giving an open license to every teachers in whatever they are teaching, whether it's mathematics or science, or religious. Before it's only religious studies or civics were inculcating these values, But others are very, taught in a secular manner, and others for utilitarian values, okay? So so now, after that, the integrated curriculum came into being in 1989 for the secondary school, and teachers are allowed to, if you are teaching science, for example, you can bring in stories from the Quran that says about, there are lots of verses in the Quran that shows the scientific things, for example, reproduction and so on, okay? However, that was short-lived because in 1999, you know what happened in Malaysia? Anwar Ibrahim was then the deputy prime minister and he was expelled or sacked. Okay? So then Najib took over and the vision became more on smart schools and ICTs and higher order thinking skill. Okay, so the emphasis is go back to the old, not really old, but went to a new direction. Okay, new direction, and it was less concerned about the values again, especially in the universities. They talk about now K economy. They talk about KPIs, and this KPI, as you look, if you are a lecturer, you understand what I mean. They are more concerned about the quantity of articles or papers that you write rather than the quality or the impact. So now, I think now they realize the mistake. Okay, they are now, first they started with numbers, then they started with citations. I don't know where they're going now. Okay, but as an old timer, I get fed up with it as well. Okay, frankly speaking, because this is not what it's not what education is all about. We're not concerned about educating the students. We are more concerned about publishing papers and the numbers. It's a number game. So I think that's why I think Prof. Zulkifli has always been this champion against this KPI from his time in USM until now he came to IIUM and he championed now the SDGs. Okay, so this is if you ask me what is the evidence, was there any success with the ICSS integrated curriculum? Okay, one clear indicator is that if before this you don't see any musalla or surau in national schools, you don't see at all. When I was in school, there was none of this. But if you go to the pondok school or the traditional Islamic school, you will see that, but not in the national school. But after this, you realize that there are musalla in every school because the curriculum emphasize theory and practice, not just talking about it, but don't do it. So the students, they know about prayer, they know all the theory, but they don't pray. So there is the emphasis on practice. And it also expanded to, in Malaysia, wherever you go along the highway, there are, in the rest area, you see musalla. You go to shopping centers in Malaysia today, you see musalla, places to pray. It's unbelievable. In Malaysia, it's very easy to pray. There's no excuse for you not praying. Okay, so this is part of the effect of the integration of knowledge, theory of knowledge. But of course, there are also some other side effects. I don't think I will have to discuss that. Sometimes it gets over the other side, extreme. So in other words, teachers spend so much time now on reading even Yasin on Friday, whereas this is not, and this is not the place for national school because you don't want the other non-Muslims to feel intimidated by it. Okay, but this does happen. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. Well, that leaves me with so you have this social integration where you can pray fairly easily anywhere. Why then are the values not translating into the student, into the formation?
Okay, right. Very good question. When you ask this question, I always like to refer you to Japan. Okay, in Japan they don't have any particular religious belief. They are Shinto. It's more like the practice of the samurai. Okay. But then when they die, they must call the Buddhist priest. so Japan is killer in that sense. But anyway, they are very successful in the methods of inculcation of values. If you want to compare them, because I was there, that's why I can see the difference. It's because the values are in the family and it's also translated to the school. So and they don't preach. You can preach values, but it doesn't mean that it will brush and be internalized by the students. They do it. For example, if they want to teach nutrition, they want to teach empathy and so on, they have the school lunch, for example. So in the school lunch, they themselves will take the lunch from the kitchen and then they will serve and then they eat together. The group work, you're talking about collectivity, right? The group is there. I mean, you don't preach about community, but you do it. Mm-hmm. So they're good in recycling. Or they do so many things in Japan without preaching. And in the Japanese home, you can see that the mother will already put plastic. This garbage bag is for plastic. This is for paper. So it's at home and in the school. In the school also they have animals to take care of. I was there in a school where they were doing a science project. Okay, science experiment, and they need potato for the science experiment. They want to test for starch. Okay, so they will go to the garden and dig out potatoes. So where did they get the potato? They planted the potato. So in other words, actually, even the American, they observe Japanese education, realize that they are more of the action-oriented. They do rather than they preach. So this is why in Malaysia we do a lot of preaching. I'm sorry to say that, but we do a lot of preaching, but we don't do. So this is why now, if you are not aware, in Malaysia now there is a project where they are working with JICA, the Japanese agency, okay, with a few pilot schools to transplant the tokatsu. They call it tokatsu. That is the extracurricular activities. Because in Japan, the extracurricular activities, the non-academic, is 33%. And this is part of the curriculum. You know, they sweep the corridors, you know, all these things. That's why they don't have janitors in Japan. For your information, students wash the toilets, they sweep the floors, the corridors. They don't have janitors. So this is what we mean by doing. So Malaysia is realizing what you were saying just now. So now there is a pilot project by EPRB, the research division, and they're taking a few schools in Kuala Lumpur, in Pahang, I know, because they called me once, okay? And although I say that it's going to be a challenge because the family must be the first one that has it, you know? Now the student will have to go home and tell the parents. The parents tell them what to do. So whether that will work or not, I don't know. I don't know. It's not that easy.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott and Prof. Rosnani, for answering the question. So just now we have Agus Nur Rahman. He has raised his hand virtually. So, okay, all right. I guess maybe he changed his mind. So we have Najih Barakat, okay, who asked Prof. Rosnani this question. What is the difference between collectivistic orientation and sense of belonging? Would you please give an example?
Okay, thank you, Sister Dr. Najia from Palestine. Okay, when you say sense of belonging, everyone will have a sense of belonging to the group. But you're talking about the school, how successful the school is. That means you're proud to be part of that school. Okay, how do school inculcate that sense of belonging? In those days when I was in school can have their own uniform. You know, they don't have. There is no. Maybe the national school has one uniform, but if you're in a boarding school, okay, let's say I was in TKC, I will have a different uniform. Another one, if another boarding school has a different uniform. So when you go out to the town, okay, or when you go back from the town to your village, to your kampung, on the train, on the bus, you wear your uniform. And people will say, oh, this is from TKC, or this is from MCKK, right? So that pride, that sense of belonging is created there. Okay, so sense of belonging is something that the school creates so that the student. One other way is that the teachers concern for the student. So if the teachers are very concerned about the student will feel part of the school. They will say that you do something to the student that they feel proud to be in that environment. Okay, and I think most boarding schools are able to do that. But also some what they call this day school here, for example, especially the missionary, I see St. John convents and so on, they have also been successful. So it stands to belonging. In other words, you feel like a part of this, and you will protect, you will defend the school.
Prof. Rosnani?
That's what the sense of belonging. Actually, it comes.
It's like she's having some
problems.
The line is not clear.
Perhaps if we switch off our camera, can that help? Is it? We switch off, yeah.
I think Prof. Rosnani is gone already. Still there? Yeah, yes, Prof. Rosnani, yes, please come back.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you switch off the camera, Prof. Rosnani, because we do not hear your voice.
Prof. Rosnani, can you say something?
Rosla, maybe you can add, because this we are part of the researcher.
Well, I think for that question, I don't think there's anything more to add lah. Sense of belonging is, you feel that you belong to the university, and that collective feeling is how you activate it, right? How you make it together. But I think there is another question by Noor Faizan, if Prof. Roslina allows me, because it's talking about...
Please proceed, Prof. Aslam, while I
because
call Prof. Rosnani.
Yeah, because it's talking about, from Noor Faizan, about the questionnaires. Were the questionnaires the same for the school level? Because we got sample from Form 3, 4, and 5. We used the same questionnaire, but we had our RAs, when they conducted the briefing, they explained the questions if anybody had a problem to understand. So that's how we managed to get the response from students from age 15, age 16, and age 17, because we were able to explain the questions to them if anybody asked. But I do remember from what I remember from our RAs, there were some questions that did, some of the students were not clear, but generally they seemed to understand what was, from the briefing given, they understood, and they were able to get, to answer the questions. And I think we didn't have too much of a problem with that after the briefing was given, and if they had any questions, we were able to clarify.
Yeah, we are facing certain schools in certain areas.
Okay, we can hear you, Prof. Rosnani.
Okay, I just continue that our researcher need to explain certain term for non-Malay speaking.
Yeah.
So this is one of our difficulties, because certain questions need to elaborate and clarify. So Alhamdulillah, that's why we really appreciate our research assistant. Professor Rosnani, you are here, so welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I think something.
The line is not, yeah.
My line. Yeah, I think you have answered some of the questions already. I can hear you, but you cannot hear me. Okay.
Oh,
yeah, there are several questions in the chat room now, Prof. Roslina.
Okay, so we shall continue now. So we have...
I think the other one just now, Dr. Najia, she was asking about what's the difference between sense of belonging
Yes.
and collectivistic orientation, right?
Yes.
So I've explained about sense of belonging, but collectivistic orientation is the group, the working in the group, in the community. That is what it is. It's different from sense of belonging. But if you work with the group, you will have a sense of belonging to your group. Okay. So this is why in Japan also I would like to say they don't preach. In schools in Japan, they create small group of hands for every classroom. There are about 6 people to a group. And this group will work together in many projects and activities, okay? And even in sports. Okay, so much so that if you're a group member, you feel ashamed if you bring down the group. So this is how they create the group collectivism as well. Okay, so I hope I've answered Dr. Najia.
Okay, the next question is from Noor Faizan. Sampling of participants differ in age, background, religion, level of education, etc. How were the questionnaires constructed to represent those attributes? Forgiveness, religiosity.
This is where
in attempt to cater those different backgrounds, or do you have the same sets of questions for all?
I think we cannot have different set for different religious group, because we want to find out how they think, and that's why we can see how the different groups whether there's any difference or not in their thought. So that's why we have the same questionnaire regardless of their religious group or their age group. the age group is only for the secondary schools is 3, 4, 5, only 3 years difference. That's why you won't see much difference actually. Okay, but for the religious group, for all the construct, for all the values that we have, it is based on what they call this literature as well as our own experience. You know, so that is the mechanism for developing questionnaire that was, I think, followed by the AEMS. And actually, I had it in my slide, but that was under appendix. Unless you want to see an example, then we can show you back the share screen. Then we can tell you example of what is sense of belonging, what kind of questions that were asked, and for example, for religiosity, what kind of question did they ask? Because religiosity is regards to important. How important is the influence of religion? You don't say whether Islam or not, but religion to your life. That kind of question. So it can be answered by anyone. Okay.
And I think Prof. will also add that we have research assistant that explain and elaborate to each school, each level of schools. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That was for understanding.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is, in your opinion, Prof, based on your findings, what Malaysia can do to improve education delivery in school and university? That's question from Shahrul Niza Shamsuddin.
To improve
education delivery in school and university.
Education delivery, the most important agency for education delivery, of course, is the teachers. Okay, so that's why the self-efficacy of the teachers is very important, and also the teachers' life satisfaction is also important. Okay, so in other words, if teachers are not satisfied with their life, they are miserable in school, and they will not give the best in school. If the teachers have very low self-efficacy, they are not going to be able to convince and change their students. So that's why the teacher has a very crucial role to play in the delivery. Okay, and not just technology. Technology is always a tool. It can never replace teachers. Okay, so that's why the teacher is very important. So even if you don't have technology, but you are very charismatic teachers, you are a motivator. You know, in those days when there was no technology, for example, one ulama can reach hundreds of people. You know, there's no technology, but they're able to hold the attention of hundreds of audience. Okay, so the same thing here. The teacher is very important, but secondly, is also the ministry. The ministry must also be open. If the ministry is very rigid, there will not be any creativity or innovation in school. Okay, I can see this, especially in the ministry. There are many layers of bureaucracy. There are not only principals, there are also school inspectors, and school inspectors come and they are very rigid. For example, if the teacher does something that is not out of the ordinary, the teacher will be questioned. So that's why teacher appears to be different. I remember once one teacher was doing hikmah pedagogy, and she was having a circle with the students. I mean, it's a big class. It's about 40. They have two concentric circles, you know. And it so happened that the inspector came, and then the students were not standing up when they're asking question or they're answering question. And then after the class, the inspector told us, "Why do you allow students not to step? Why do you allow students to sit down when they answer question and they ask question?" I mean, they're so used to thinking that is rude. But actually, when you use a pedagogy like Socratic method, you know, you sit down and talk. It's like a meeting. Do you stand up in meeting? Of course not. But then you by you asking the question, you threaten the teacher rather than you say, oh, that was a good class, something new, you know. You threaten them by being different. Similarly, the same teachers, when they go to their what do you call this, head teachers for their panel, subject panel, right? Head subject panel. When the teacher and have a little bit different lesson planning, that the teachers will be asked, why is your planning different from the rest? So you see, when you talk about delivery and change, it has to come from principal leadership, teachers instruction leadership as well. Principal too, I think, is something that if there's innovative work being done, even by any university faculty member going to the school to do a study, especially related to pedagogy, okay, or instruction, okay, innovative principal with instructional leadership would follow that teacher and ask for more if she see that it's good, not just allowing them, okay, you're allowed to enter the school to do your research and that's it. This is the thing that I really am displeased about the Malaysian educational officials, especially also principals, frankly speaking, because I've done so many studies just to improve on instructional technology. When we started instructional technology web-based, we wanted to use it to improve English because webs are all in English, right? So I did a study in the class for a few months, you know. The principal came the first time to say that, okay, you are allowed to use to teach in schools. But then throughout the duration, they never even peep to look what the teachers are doing, what the students are doing. So it's very, very sad to me because principal is not just administrative leader. They should be instructional leaders as well. That is what can improve delivery. But if they are just like administrator, you know, then there will not be any quality improvement. This is my frustration. I've done so many things. In fact, the one that you mentioned, the last one, the Iqra recitation method that I told you, I received lots of good feedback from reverts because reverts are using it and the teachers were telling me that they found this very effective and very fast way to learn how to read the Quran. I've tried to do this in school, but unfortunately, pandemic, so we can, after we train the teacher, it's pandemic, so we cannot go to school. But I managed to read online and teach the teachers how to read online for the International Islamic School in Kuantan. They're doing it. Okay, so with the reverts, we also did it online, you know. And they said that when I took the survey, to them, there's no difference between face-to-face and online. That means there's no quality differences in how you teach. So I think this is, I hope this answers your question. Yes, we have to improve delivery, but delivery means a cooperation of especially teachers, and teachers must be granted that authority and freedom by the school administrators, and principal must be concerned about instructional leadership and not just administrative leadership. Then only we have change. But we are very poor in that, sad to say.
Okay.
Nobody welcome innovations.
Thank you, Prof. Rosnani. It's amazing, especially the Iqra project. So another question from Jamalia this time. It is I have questions pertaining the forgiveness level upon the respondent. Why is that degrading actually? In Prof's opinion, is the akhlaq represent almost Malaysian? Let's say the divorce case that reached 66,000. Hopefully the news not misleading us. Also due to lack of gratitude and forgiveness. Don't these two variables supposed to be aligned in Muslim personality perspective?
Right. Is Dr. Ilham still around?
She has some issues, so she has to leave. Yeah.
I see. Because I was communicating with her. I was wondering why this forgiveness this time is very bad. You know, whereas it's the same questionnaire. I mean, the questions are still the same, and then given to, of course, same age groups of students. Okay, but then the response is very, very different this time. And she was telling me that, oh, you have that too? Yes, we had these two in Malaysia. And she said she has an explanation for it, but she had never explained it to me. I was wondering if she is here, maybe she could give us the explanation. I just cannot figure out why it happened. That's all I can say, because it's the same questions, okay, given to students of the same variabilities, you know, same age rate.
Prof, we
Yeah.
have to be very proud of our Selangorians then, in that case, because they showed forgiveness, right? In the pilot study.
Forgiveness. So in Selangor is different from the other four zones that we tested. So I don't know why it happened that way.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Prof. Rosnani, because the sample, is from Kedah, Terengganu, Negeri Sembilan, and then the East Malaysia. So it's like they don't really go for forgiveness, while Selangor, with many urbanizations and factories, they go for forgiveness. So it's very interesting there. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. There's some comments, but we'll give priority to the question. So from Abdul Kadir Kala, thank you, Prof. And now we can compare these results with other countries.
Yeah.
Curriculum materials, Jazakallah khair.
Okay,
So
good.
is that in your plan, Prof?
Well, actually, IIMS at USA, they have published the general report, specifically general report for every country that took part in the study. I think there's big number of countries. Do you remember, Roslina?
Is it 11 or 12 or maybe?
Bosnia.
No, a lot more than 11 or 12.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because a lot more country compared to the first wave. Okay,
Yeah.
but
Right.
and it can be obtained from the internet because they uploaded this and you can get it. You can get access to it. Okay, so you can get access and look. But for countries that have their part, like Malaysia, I don't know whether they have done this separately. So what we did was we extracted the Malaysian data and then we do our own analysis.
I think, Prof, if I remember correctly, they have published all the data together.
Right.
They don't make distinction between countries or regions. So that's why what we are doing, we extracted and we come up with our own study. So this has to be done by all the individual countries. Then you can actually do what is being proposed. You can compare between countries, or else I think they've just put all the data together, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they have, for example, shown. I can't show it to you, but it's in the PDF file. They have, for example, show you for let's say empathy. For empathy.
I shared the URL for IIIT AMS research on the chat room. So
can you do that? Because
I did in the chat room, in the chat box.
So you can have access to
Yes.
all of those data, but it's putting all the things together because they're doing for the whole Muslim world. Okay, but separate country they have to do it by themselves.
Yeah, but I think, Prof, this is the reason why we probably should inform Dr. Ilham that there is interest for people to know different country results, so that they can make the comparison to see what is being done rightly or wrongly, compared between different countries. So that would be a good.
I mean, the implications of the study then.
Yeah, for the country.
Yeah, maybe we should propose to Dr. Ilham.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
really great. Can I say something, please?
Yeah. From London.
Thank you. I'm from London, but speaking for Mauritius. I've been involved with the setup of AEMS from the beginning, alhamdulillah. Though I'm not an education specialist like you guys, I wish to thank Professor Rosnani for her very beautiful insight. I never sort of realized, as I said to you, that I'm no educationist. I just take the question, gave it to the specialist, they did the survey. So, Jazakallah khair, Professor Rosnani, for that very enlightening thing. Now you inspire us to go and see. What's unique about Mauritius, Professor Rosnani, is that we are in a Muslim minority.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Muslim minority, so the question was answered by also non-Muslim. And I have two specialists who attended the program. I don't know, they are still here, Dr. Bilal and Professor Kala. So I will incite them to do something. You inspire us today to go back and look what we need to know about our country, like Professor Aslam just mentioned. It would be easy, like what you did, if IIIT did, and we will just follow it. Jazakallah khair. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Brother Anwar.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the next question is, there are those who questions that Islamic education has not succeeded in producing progress in terms of developing science. The proof is that very few Muslim intellectuals have won the Nobel Prize. Please explain further regarding how education in Malaysia views science. Is there another conception of science that has developed in Malaysian educational philosophy, for example, which emphasize the contextualization of science so that there is no need to follow global standards, including being too concerned about the Nobel Prize? So, for example, yeah, thank you. That's come from Nuruddin.
Okay. Well, we have been talking about, if you've been following the Islamization of knowledge movement, we have been talking about Islamization of science as well, all knowledge, okay? So I think, but Islamization of science, basically, the most important thing is the philosophy, okay? The philosophy is that science can also, there's science also another ayat of the Quran, okay? One ayat that we know very well is, of course, Al-Quran. Al-Quran will lead us to Aqidah, will lead us to Tawheed, will lead us to Allah and Sharia and Ibadah, okay? But there's another science that comes from the world of creation. So I think most Muslim scientists are aware of this. Science is not a new creation. Science was developed by our great forefathers in the 8th, 9th, 10th centuries. So they were aware of this, and they developed science further until it was transmitted to the West. The difference between their science and the Western science or other sciences, okay, is in the philosophy. Okay, in the philosophy, whereas their science is more for ibadah, okay, and for Aqidah. Of course, the Western science is basically more for utilitarian values, power. So, and as you realize, when science that was transmitted from the Muslim world to the West came to the West had crisis between the scientists and the church. Okay, and because of that crisis, they separated. And actually, the Western scientists or scholars say that they learned this from Ibn Rushd. So Ibn Rushd influenced a lot in the West, more than he influenced the Muslim here. Whereas what Ibn Rushd was trying to say is that there is a point of convergence between religion and science. You know, so that was what he said in his book Makal al-Fasal. Okay, you can know God from these two ways, not just one way. Okay, so anyway, when you talk about education in Malaysia, at the level of thoughts, okay, I think we are very fortunate and very grateful that we have scholars like Syed Naqib Al-Atas and also Usman Bakar. Usman Bakar wrote his book Tawheed and Science, and he really explained it very well. I think every one of us should read it, especially science teachers should read it as well. And even the religious teachers should read it, except that it's in English. Okay, so that is why when we say integrated curriculum before, we are saying that the ministry give full opportunity to teachers to integrate values in whatever subjects. So if you are a science teacher and you have knowledge of the Quran, definitely you can integrate it in your teaching of science. For example, you want to say the magnificence of Allah, you can just look at your in the Quran, they say look at your thumb. In your thumb, there is why we use thumbprint. Because no two thumbprints are similar. And how many billions of people do we have? Billions. And no two thumbprints are the same. Is that easy? Is it easy? Only Allah can do that.
Yeah.
So So there are many other examples in the Quran that can show about Allah's greatness for Islam and science. Okay, so teachers are given the freedom. Unfortunately, of course, our science teachers don't have much knowledge of religion. They don't specialize in Quran, and before the integrated curriculum, they don't read the Quran except for the Arabic version. Of course, the younger generation, maybe like Mr. Nuruddin and some others, like me, for example, we read the Quran with understanding, even though it's from the translation. So maybe we will have more knowledge to explain to others. So if the teachers take the extra effort to do and read more, then they can do it. But this is not only for science teachers. The Islamic religious teachers also has to read science. So it is vice versa. Both so that when they teach religion, they can convince their students based on the science, based on science. Okay, so this is as to whether we what do you call this, implement it in the school, in our curriculum. This is a difficulty. Because in other words, if you want to produce textbooks of science with the Islamic input, and this is going to be taught to all students, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, there might be misunderstanding. Okay, but the opportunity to do it is very much easy because you have religious school in Malaysia, National Religious Secondary School, Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan Agama, where all the students are Muslims. So you could definitely start with a textbook that has the integration of Quran and science inside that textbook for this group of people, so that the non-Muslim will not consider this as offensive. So I think Prof. Aslam and Prof. Azan would like to add to that, you know. So that's what I think. I think we don't have to depend on the Ministry of Education for those sekolah rendah Islam by Ikram or by ABIM or Jabatan Agama Islam or SMKA. I mean, the numbers is huge. It's not going to be lost to produce this kind of textbook. And in my case, for example, we have the International Islamic School. When the International Islamic School, I happened to be the board of directors there. And one of the things that I did was we wrote, because we have been dependent on other textbooks, okay? And we're not very happy with the content. So I worked with the teachers and the IIUM lecturers to produce the series of Islamic studies textbook from grade 1 to grade 6. And inside there, we integrate science. It's easy because this is international Islamic schools. So this is where we can take that step. Only that, the market is small lah. So when we print, we cannot print in bulk, we print by demand. Okay? But alhamdulillah, actually that book now has been, adapted by the Hong Kong Islamic School. I gave them, I said, you just give a token sum to international school. So they give, I think, 5,000 ringgit lah, because they want to adapt also according to their environment. And then there's another request from Brother Said from Australia for that to look at the book. So I think it's about time if you are talking seriously about integration, because the founding fathers like Syed Naqib Al-Atas, Osman Bakar, they've given the ideas. That's the job of philosopher, isn't it? Give ideas. But we are the one who have to operationalize the ideas. I think that's long enough already.
Okay, right. There are quite a number of questions, but definitely we need to stop before 11. Okay. So the next question comes from Shikin Yusof. Prof, can you shed a bit of light on the word wasatiyah and the idea of achieving excellence in balance? Prof. Rosnani?
Wow, wasatiyah. Let's go Prof. Kamal. Yes, written the book Wasatiyah. Wasatiyah means precision. Precision, exactly. That's what it means. So we are umatan wasatiyah. So we are the precise ummah. Exactly. Okay. But actually, balance wasatiyah, maybe you can say that the balance that we have will lead to that wasatiyah. Sometimes people interpret wasatiyah as moderate, right? Moderate. Yeah. There's a moderation, moderate Muslim, we call it. Yeah. Yeah. So moderation, that context is that you are not extremely religious until you're extremely religious until you do something that not all people can do. Okay, and it's cause difficulty to other people as well if you say this is necessary. Okay, so moderation means like istiqamah lah. You do it although little, but you continue doing it. So so that balance is related in that sense to wasatiyah, because wasatiyah means you want to reach the exact point. It's not easy to be exact because you'll be push and pull from both sides. So that's why the balance is necessary, and that balance is not easy. That is the most difficult thing, and that's why you need the hikmah, putting things in the proper place. Adil, hikmah, adil, adab. Okay, so you need that.
Okay, all right. This is a comment actually, but I will just summarize and read it in case Prof would like to make a comment. So it's about forgiveness. It's not significant at all among our students in schools and universities. And this value is not inculcated in the family well, and it shall contribute to other negative values such as grudges and resentment. And we can see well those are transformed in the country's economy and political aspect as well. It seems to make sense to the scenario these days. Again, thanks to Prof. Rosnani. So this is comment, but I thought maybe Prof. Rosnani would like to say a little bit on this.
Yeah, I think what she mentioned, I think the sister mentioned is true. Okay, actually forgiveness is not easy for most people. Okay, but think about it. I think to have that forgiveness, you have to have that sense that everything has been determined by Allah. So if some musibah happens, some musibah happens, and if you know that this musibah cannot happen without the consent of Allah, without His His will, okay, it will not happen. So if you have reached that stage where you know that Allah rules everything, then you'll be able to forgive much easier than if you feel that the person who caused you this musibah is that person, not related to God at all. So that's why a Muslim must always have taqwa, always remember Allah. So yeah, that's why if we teach the properly Islamic education, that's why you will have that forgiveness. Okay, that forgiveness. But I think the condition, the syarat for this forgiveness is you must remember that everything is in Allah's control. It's not human beings' control. So that will make it easy on you to forgive somebody. Because you know that even if that person wants to hurt you, but Allah doesn't allow, it will not be done. So look forward. If Allah gives it to you, if a musibah or whatever, Allah wants you to be close to Him. So yeah, then you're going to be happy. Then that's why you can forgive. I don't know, I have very simple principle, isn't it? But of course, I agree that forgiveness has to be taught at home, and that's why it is not taught orally. This is the thing that we have to learn about Islam. It's not taught orally, it is taught by action. So we have to see action in home and also in school. So I think, thank you for that comment.
Yes. The next one is from Dr. Hamidullah. I guess this could be a broader scope of the question. What has been your approach towards integration of knowledge movement, madam? Yeah.
What has been my what?
Your approach towards integration of knowledge movement?
Okay, that's a very personal question. My approach. I actually,
Prof,
yes.
I think there is another added a couple of sentences, words after that. What is your approach towards integration of knowledge movement known as Islamization of knowledge? So basically your view on Islamization of knowledge in the context of integration.
I think being a Muslim, I think is everyone's aspiration should be to have Islamic thing, whatever they do, to be Islamic in whatever you do. Okay, and if you know that something, if done in that manner, will make you depart from Allah's way, then you know that it's not correct. So you must do something. So that's why, for me, Islamization is part of my life. That's what Dawah is all about. Dawah is calling to the path of Islam, isn't it? So in other words, whatever you do, you want to bring Islam. You want to raise the shiar of Islam. You want to make Islam best so that people appreciate Islam. You don't want them to be Muslim because you torture them, or you compel them, or you force it on them. You want them to be Muslim because they see the beauty of Islam. So I think it is a natural fitrah for a Muslim who understands about Islam. So because that is my belief and my sort of mission as well. So whatever I do, if I'm teaching, I try, even when I was in secondary school, the teacher, the student knows that this teacher, when she teaches mathematics, she will bring Islam. Of course, it's very difficult to integrate mathematics with Islam. But what I do is, I will teach for, the class is 50 minutes period. I will teach the theory and do let them do the exercise to reinforce the understanding. So 40 minutes, 10 minutes, I will start talking. 10 minutes, I will start talking. For example, when they want to go home for their school holiday, I told them, okay, you know that this is the only time you be home. You must forget about your books and pay attention to your parents. And I will say that, okay, do you know that, can you ever repay your parents for what they have done to you? Oh, they will say that, no. Let me tell you a story, I say. There this Sahabat who went around the Kaabah carrying his mother. And he was very proud that he said he met the Prophet saying that he has repaid his mother. The Prophet said, no, you have never repaid your mother. So this is the kind of things we do. And story is the best way of teaching. Okay? That's why the Quran is full of stories. I mean, the Prophet stories and so on. So when I teach curriculum, I try to integrate in the curriculum. And that's why when I adopted Hikmah pedagogy, I want it to be used to produce wisdom, but through understanding the Quran. Let us tadabbur the Quran, because our weakness is, what's the difference between our generation and our previous forefathers' generation was very successful even in Islamic, in natural sciences. It's because they understood the Quran. Why did they discover astrolabe? Because they want to go to Hajj. Why did they discover trigonometric science, cosines, and so on? Because they want to know the angles. So their obligation make them translate their theories into practice. So this is the same thing as if you can teach mathematics and integrated values. For example, don't waste water. So you ask them to calculate the tap water dripping. So if you let it drip for one day, how much water have you wasted? Of course, you can do that too. Okay, but basically you have to give extra effort. But to do that, we have to be well read. We have to be well informed. Because if you don't, like Amka used to say, kalau kita sifar, angka sifar, kita tak boleh memberi orang lain apa-apa. If you are zero, sifir, you cannot give other people anything. So that's why we must have a good learning culture. That's what they used to have during those times of the Abbasid. A good learning culture where they learn and then they practice it and then they do it. Okay. So I think basically Islamization of knowledge, I was with it for a long time. Since I started teaching, I was there already, and I was Alhamdulillah, invited by Allahyarham Prof. Abu Sulaiman to even go to Philippines, to Indonesia, to talk about Islamization of knowledge. When I was still a very young scholar, I just got back from my PhD. Okay, but I guess he saw through people's talents and words, okay, and writings as well. So I was there with them. But after a while, I realized that this 30 years already, okay, we should have books, because we cannot just be talking. So when I was holding the position of the director of IIIT East Asia, after Prof. Othman left for Brunei, I think, okay, there was nobody else, okay. I told them that if you want me to be director, I don't want to talk, I don't want to hold seminars, because I'm tired of seminars already. What I want is you have to write books. So I started going to places to invite them to write books, but because I only have a short stint, so I didn't materialize anything. But whatever it is, I'm glad that after that, with Dr. Jamil, he began the book writings and so on. So I think this is what Faruqi was expecting. The textbook. Syed Naqib, the scholar, but the scholar has to write their textbook. So I think this is it is moving, okay. But don't expect that when you teach science with Islam, you are preaching Islam religion. No, we don't want that. Otherwise, they become religion. Okay, the knowledge has to perform its duty. So if it's sociological knowledge, it has to be sociology. You don't make it religious, completely religious. So this is like Ali Shariati, they will be writing about Hajj in a sociological manner. So everything has to be Islamized in that context. But when you say Islamization, it always means that there is a body of knowledge written from the Western worldview, and then you Islamize it. We don't want that also. That's why we also have to become creative. We have to start our own knowledge. So that's why I always give the comparison of the tree. There are two trees. One tree is you have let's say Dewey, Karl Marx, Adam Smith, and so on. And then on top of that tree, you have the Muslim trying to Islamize their ideas. And their ideas come from the roots is Western philosophy. Then you have another tree. You have Al-Ghazali, you have Ibn Khaldun, you have Ibn Rushd, and so on. And the roots goes to the Islamic base, Islamic roots. The problem is we have cut off our conversation from the second tree. Why? Because we don't know Arabic. Their works have not been translated. And we are very fortunate that this work have been translated by Western scholars. We read them in English. So what we need to give in our school system is educational classics. I call it educational classic. When I studied in America, I used to read Plato. Why should I read Plato? For them, Plato is part of their classic. So you should read Plato. That means until now, America has never cut off its conversation from its roots. But in our case, we have cut off our conversation with Al-Ghazali, Ibn Rushd, Ibn Tufayl. These are all giants, you know. When I read Ibn Tufayl, I realized how great it is because he was trying to show that you can know God from science. Just now the person who asked me, okay, go and read Ibn Tufayl. His work is Hai Ibn Yaqzan, okay, translated into English and many other languages already. He just wanted to show because during his time, people were suspecting science. People were so engrossed in religion, they don't want to do science anymore. It's just like the Muslim today. You see? So you have to inculcate them to see that science is another way of strengthening the Aqidah. So that is Islamization, brother, is to strengthen the Aqidah and to also allow us to fulfill our obligation in the objective of the knowledge itself. So I hope I've answered very long. Sorry.
That's okay, Prof, because it's very interesting. So, and the audience would like to hear about it because, you know, it's really an impactful research and it touched everyone here and also the rest of the world. So actually, Prof. Hamidullah posed the continuation of his question, and in relation to your response, Prof. So we don't have textbooks touching upon the Islamic methodology to study modern Western sciences, which is aesthetic and also consumerist in nature. I feel we need to produce textbooks first of all if we really want to bring Islamic values back. Please elaborate on this topic. So I think the continuation of the encouragement on publication, Prof. Rosnani.
Can I answer that, Prof. Rosnani?
Yeah, sure. I think we start with such a
because I read the question before, so I already prepared the list of the book. One of the book is my book, ICT and Islam. So this has become a textbook for the several universities to talk about Islam as a textbook. Then, of course, my friend's book, Prof. Aslam Hanif, is there. Is Islamic Economic Education. So it's universities. Then also Prof. Roslina books and myself book, Knowledge Management from Islamic Perspective. It's published by IIIT. Then Scott books. Scott, these Muslim societies in post-normal times. And sorry, is I think I shouldn't blur this. Just straight to point. Yeah, this Muslim Society post-normal time. You can download it free. It's published by IIIT. Then there is book by Professor Dr. Siddiq Fadil, Islamic Management. We translated into English. Then there's another book by Almarhum Dr. Hamid Abu Sulaiman. Is a Quranic worldview. Then is now book the books of Hamid Abu Sulaiman is download free by IIIT. You can download it free. Now this is one of our young researcher, Dr. Janda, the natural science from the Quran worldview of the Quran by Prof. Kamal Hassan and Jannah. Then this from Osman Bakar, Tawhid and Science. Then this from Osman Bakar to Islamic Civilization and Modern World. Then there is Hamid Abu Sulaiman's by IIIT towards Islamic Theory International Relations, New Direction with Methodology and Thought. And this is free, you can download. You just go to IIIT books. Then this is by Prof. Osman Bakar, The Classification Knowledge in Islam. So we have books that available. That's what IIIT doing. And Prof. Osman maybe can explain about, like we also give the research grant to write books. And lately, we just come up with the applied Maqasid Sharia on any field. And I think 2 weeks ago, Prof. Aslam can explain more that we have even in the level in the field of medical. So Prof. Aslam, maybe I pass to you. Maybe Prof. Rosnani can add after this. Prof. Aslam. Yes. Okay,
just to the question about the books, I believe Prof. Rosnani has already mentioned that I think if we look at the Islamization of knowledge work plan, the goal at the end of the day is to produce reading materials. Of course, in the work plan it was called textbooks, but we can look at it as teaching materials covering textbooks, maybe some reference books. And many of the books that Prof. Ozan showed just now are probably books that are of general interest. They may not be a particular course. So certainly we need to produce more. I think nobody in this group here will agree that, Muslims have not been producing much, works, whether they are journal articles or books. So we need to regain that lost, strength that we used to have. One of the small things that we are doing, IIIT East and Southeast Asia is doing, we have actually started quite aggressively, as Prof. Rosnani mentioned, to try and produce teaching materials for the courses that we teach in university. So in IIUM, now I think we have about 90 projects, in different stages of production. We've published about 7 or 8 titles and many more to come. So this is one example that we are trying to do. books that will be used in the courses in IIUM. We also try to promote this project with other universities, with USM, Science University in Malaysia. We have also now going to start maybe some MOU with a couple of other universities in Malaysia. I hope many of the other colleagues in other parts of the world, IIIT officers, will also start to do this, because at the end of the day, I think, as mentioned by Prof. Rosnani, seminars are good, talking is good, but at the end of the day, it has to be translated into action. And I think our action is to come up with the textbooks and then to be taught in class. Wallahu alam, maybe Prof. Rosnani may add on.
Yeah, just talking about textbook. For those who are in education, actually I've collected my articles and produced new articles as well in the book towards Islamizing the curriculum, principles and issues. So maybe for those in education, we can have a look at that. And I wrote the book on reclaiming the conversation, so that we can have a conversation with all the intellectuals in the Malay world, or the people in the Malay world, because we have lost that conversation, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel, because those people have done a lot, and we should just expand it, rather than starting anew. So this should happen everywhere. We have, in fact, that's why classics should be held for Al-Ghazali, for Ibn Rushd, their works, and should be read, because then only we understand their greatness. What's brilliant about the idea? If we just keep saying this and saying that, we don't really know what is great about the ideas. So that's why we need to have not only new books by what they call this, our new generation of scholars, but we also need to get those books by our previous predecessors that are, you can say, in a class of its own. Not all books are of the same class. They have a class like Chicago. University of Chicago came up with a great book project where they went at Plato, Homer. So similarly, we should have our great book project. And I think I remember Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim, when he was the Minister of Education, we did have this project where we translated Ibn Khaldun and so on under Dewan Bahasa. I was one of the writers who translated the Taj of Midas by Zawudin Sardar then into Malay. So I mean, the Darul Hikmah, this is what Darul Hikmah was before. It's the translations of work from all over the world, but great books. Because great books change minds, not typical book. We don't want quantity, we want quality. But for teaching material, definitely, everyone, but you must have some years of experience teaching the thing before you can write the textbook. So that is very important as I would say, a condition, Prof. Aslam. Okay, so I think that is my response. But definitely, learning culture is very important. Yes. So,
agree with you, Prof. Rosnani. So let's have our final question from Wahyono Saputro. Prof, how about the role of school leadership in that research finding? Terima kasih, from Palembang, Indonesia. How about the role of school leadership in that research finding?
How is the role of school leadership in research finding?
In your research, Prof, what's the role of the school leadership? Yeah.
In this wave 2, there was no survey on school leaders. But in the first wave, we had a survey on the school leaders as well. Definitely, as I mentioned earlier, school leaders have a very important role to play. But in this survey, it is how school leaders themselves perceive those values, right? So we had that, I can't remember offhand, but school leaders, their perception of the values is almost similar to the students. We can see that they consider religiosity as very important. So that's why we can see at least their influence on the students. So school leaders have definitely very important role to play. But if you want to ask me exactly, I have to refer back to that study of wave 1. So maybe we can like what we did in wave 1, we can share this later on, this book of Prof Aslam, because they were asking about it. Maybe we can share it with them later on.
You mean the report?
Yeah, the report.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, we can put it on the website. Should be no problem. Yeah, we're just finalizing the.
Yeah, we have the wave 1 in Bahasa Melayu and the wave 2 in English. Okay. Yeah, we can share, inshallah.
Okay, that's all with regards to the questions. They are all wonderful questions. So really, thank you for the feedback and also the comments and the answers, Prof. Rosnani. And let's have Prof. Muhammad Fauzan Nurdin to close the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Roslina, Prof. Rosnani, Prof. Aslam, and the rest of the participants. Thank you very much. More than 2 hours, but we still alert and very active. So congratulations to everybody. And I think Prof. Aslam will, you want to say something, Prof. Aslam, maybe?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. I think as you know, we did the similar topic discussion with Future Malaysia and Konrad Adenauer Stiftung about education, where we invited YB Nurul Izzah and YB Dr. Mazli Malik, Prof. Jeffrey, Prof. Aslam, and so on. The issue of education is really in our heart. And as I would quote Professor Almarhum Professor Dr. Siddiq Fadil, the education is our responsibility. It's our job. We have to be patient. And this is our future generation, and we have to do it together. And as I share with you the titles of the books of Islamization knowledge, and I really encourage not just for educationists but also for academicians to buy the book from Prof. Rosnani's book is the Islamization of curriculum of Islamic education. So this is very good book, and Prof. Rosnani, Dr. Mano Manuti said it's very good topic in one chapter about the Islamization of knowledge from several scholars. He said he gave a good comment that he really enjoyed, and he said everybody have to read those chapters. So again, I want to say thanks, and Prof. Aslam, maybe we can plan again Tripartite East and Southeast Asia about the education, and of course we can plan with Scott about the futures. What is going to happen in Malaysia, in East, Southeast Asia, and the whole entire Muslim world. We have to plan from now. If we don't plan, someone else will plan for us. So I will close tonight the session with Tasbih Kafarah and Surah Al-As. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika.